I think Kamori House was working nickel yesterday. Is that right?
Yes.
Is he a guy that could play nickel and linebacker for you? And also Christian Harrison was playing nickel. Is he a guy that could play nickel safety for you?
Yeah, great observations. With Kamori, I think he's one of those. He was that tweener type, right? Like at one point at North Carolina, he was like 215, and that's just enough at linebacker to like wonder, okay, can he sit there and stick his face in there? But can he also play that nickel? And so in our defense, if you notice, we'll play with like true two inside type backer types, right? And maybe a little bit bigger bodies. And even then, we're not playing with the old 255-pound Mike. And so, that nickel position has the ability to go up and show up in the run game and play it, right? So if we're playing an 11 personnel team, it's perfect. Now, if all of a sudden we go 12, we may need to match, all right, and take the nickel out. Maybe he goes to a safety position, Kamori does, because he's got the ability to run, or maybe he comes out and then maybe we play with a bigger body linebacker and run a traditional 4-3, if you will, right, with a third linebacker. And then Christian, the same deal, right? Christian's, 210-pound safety, who can also go up and play that linebacker type, that nickel will, however you want to call it in this defense, the star, but also go back there and has the athletic ability to play. So I think that position flex, right? Like you're not going to take Christian and say, okay, hey, need you to know the nickel safety and then also play corner, even though he has the intelligence. And then with Kamori, that was kind of our thought is, okay, understand a little bit of that nickel position, but in a pinch, if we need you to be a fast linebacker, that ability to do so. So I think with this defense, we got some unique ability, right? No different that jack position. Does that allow us to play a 4 down front, which we did some yesterday? The ability of that guy kind of be a stand-up outside backer. So we're trying to do that. A lot of those guys having that 2-position deal, but I think that as we're going to move forward and when we opportunity to meet with Coach Roberts and some of those players, like, okay, is that a nickel? Is that a will linebacker? What does that look like? I think it's that kind of that hybrid position on defense.
You flipping safeties, boundary and field, or are they?
We have the ability to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now.
Same with corners.
Yeah. Right now, it's kind of that's where we've kind of had it. Yesterday was more a right and left, but again, the ability to do that, and then as we're calling it right now, a boundary safety and then a free. And again, people say, well, does a boundary one have to be better against the run? Depends on what coverage we're playing, right? If we're playing a lot of 3-weak, sure, you want that guy to be able to be a box player. If you're playing some 3-strong rotation and that guy's playing, yesterday we played a lot of quarters. We'll play some palms. So I think it all based off of, what we're seeing, what the ability to do. Obviously, yesterday was day one install, just trying to get them, to understand the alignments, the communication piece of it.
Corner's going to be more left and right, or are you going to flip those?
To be determined. I think a lot of it is like if you sit there, if 2 weeks from now, Trey, we sit there and say, man, this guy's really good as a boundary corner, cool, then we can. The part of that is sometimes difficult because you play these tempo teams, and it's like, wait a second, the guy ran over here and we were playing man, now I got to run my tail back over there. And so I think, if you can, and you say this guy can just play this, but ideally I think in a perfect world you'd like to be able to play right and left, and it shouldn't matter, but we're going to see the strengths, the weaknesses, what each one has. Do we have 4 corners that can do all of the above, or does it have to be hey, this guy's a really good bounder, this guy can play the field and we trust it? So much goes to that, like how much man are you playing, ultimately what you decide to do. So I think as we continue to progress, we'll have a better understanding of that.
You look like you've got a lot of the right body types on the defensive line through some of the efforts in the transfer portal, and then I guess some of the young guys coming back, of course, Quincy too.
Yeah, I think we've that was something we said coming in, even though regardless of what front we're playing is, we need to get a little bit bigger body types. Now, we don't have a ton of the 330-plus guys, right? There's a lot of SEC programs and Big Ten programs that have a bunch. They got 5 guys at 330-plus. We got plenty of guys at that 290 to 310 mark, but we want them to be able to be athletic and use their hands. And that was the one thing with the D-line yesterday I was pleased with is, one, you got to see a lot of the depth, and some of those guys are guys that hadn't played a ton, but the ability that we have high expectations for, right? And maybe he didn't play at the previous school, or maybe he didn't play as much last year, but we see them getting a role. Does that role mean 10 plays, 30 plays? That's to be determined as we go along. But I felt comfortable with the way they used their hands yesterday and the depth we have initially.
Antonio Jordan looked like he's healthy again. I mean, he was praised a lot last year. I mean, you were here, obviously, but then he got hurt and he kind of disappeared, but I saw him make a good catch. Just talk about the potential, because he's got size that you can't coach.
Yeah, when we, coming in to the initial roster, you sat there and said, okay, that's one true X. I mean, that Antonio is, probably not going to line him up at the slot and what we call that bigger wide receiver. And we knew going in, man, this kid has talent. And, he's a high-hipped young man that's physical. I mean, some teams would say, oh, is he just a 223-pound tight end? And so, we knew we had him, and that was one of the reasons people said, well, why'd you go get Chris Marshall? Well, I think you need a couple of those bigger bodied receivers, because we looked up in the portal and said, man, we got a bunch of fast guys and some, guys that may not be that 6'2 plus. And, but with AJ, he's got a huge ceiling. And obviously we've recruited some good players from that area in Arkansas. And, but yesterday got a little dinged up. I don't think it's anything long term, but we're going to need him to get healthy and get going. And we have high expectations for him as well.
Coach, going back to Kamori House, I think he was the leading tackler at North Carolina. Was he wanting to look at something like that hybrid role? Was that an easy sell for him, or? For
sure, yeah. I mean, it's that fine line. Like, he led in tackles, but is that necessarily the best thing that occurred for him there? Because there he was listed as a linebacker, and he knows, long term, like, is he going to be a 230-pound kid? Probably not. And so that ability, he's got the speed and the quickness. And the intellect to be able to play in that intermediate, the nickel star type position. So I think he kind of really liked that. Hey, you're going to be, a lot of times you're going to be meeting with the secondary, but then if that ball's thrown, into the flats, or you got to come up and play the run, you got to be able to do it. I think he kind of liked that, the ability to, hey, I'm not just going to no one's going to ask me to play in the box. I'll be able to play a little bit more in space. And I think that fits what his character traits on the field from a physicality standpoint, what he's able to do. And I think in the recruitment process, it was something saying, okay, yeah, that's a good fit for me.
And when we're on the offensive line, Malachi Breland you brought over, I think his listed weight now is like 20 pounds lighter than what he was last year at Memphis. Was that what you wanted? Like, is he at a good weight for you now? Kind of what were you looking for him?
I think so. Yeah, I think as of this morning, and I don't know exactly what the listed weight is, but he's about 330. And, I'd even tell Malachi by the time the summer comes around and training camp, he'll end up playing probably come August about 325. And just getting a feel. I mean, he was 362 out of high school. And I vividly remember that he took an official visit to Texas, and then we bought him. And I sat down with him, and the kid coming off an OV to a big time school and at Memphis. And I said, man, I just, I get it. And I looked at him, I said, I think you need to lose a little weight. And sometimes it's hard to tell somebody that in the recruitment process, but that was the truth. And I think that was, kind of like, oh, this guy's telling me not necessarily what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. And he's like, yeah, you're right, I do. I'll feel better. And he's slowly but surely done a nice job. His body's transformed. But I think if, anywhere that 325 to 332 weight's probably pretty good for him. Do I want big O linemen? Sure, but if they can't move, it doesn't matter. And we don't want to be limiting our scheme based off the guy's not the ability to move around and be nimble on their feet.
Morgan Turner made the transition from the previous staff to yours. What did you like about him to keep him on?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I've known Morgan for a long time in this profession. Long time ago, his younger brother was actually had an entry-level role with us with the Minnesota Vikings, and got to know him, got to know the family a little bit, got to know Morgan at the time. And then, when you get to know these guys, I always say, like, you don't have to hire people just because you worked with them, or, sometimes it's about creative ideas. And then at one point when I was my timing between the Vikings and, Arizona State, really, I kind of just traveled, and I spent a week out at Stanford, okay? And at the time, Morgan was the tight end coach. Coach Shaw was the head coach. And Mike Bloomgren, who's now the O-line coach for the New York Giants, was their O-line coach. And I just spent a week out there. And so I got to spend a lot of time with Morgan talking about tight ends in the run game. Obviously, Stanford had a lot of success at tight end and what they did. And then coming here and understanding what Coach Petrino's done with the tight ends over his history, has always had a lot of success. Got to kind of study those things. And then, Morgan was one of those guys. I sat down with him, and him and I sat down face to face, and I said, listen, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep you around. And right now, as I continue to kind of explore what else may be out there as tight end coaches, you're welcome to think if there's anything else out there, but let's meet every couple of days. And so it was kind of neat because I was able to be around him for about 10 days and talk ball, get an idea. And listen, like I always said, that there's some great things from previous things that occurred, right? Being able to keep some of the administration roles around. And I thought, Morgan had did a good job and built a good rapport in that tight end room, and he's got some creative ideas, right? We don't always have it. And so with the success he's had in the past with being able to bring a new thought, whether it's in the run game, pass game, even in special teams, I thought it was the right fit for us to keep him around.
When you were talking about the nickel / tweener type guys and jacks and things, how we refer to him, but how does Ron refer to him and you refer to him? What should we call him?
We'll call it the Star, but you can call it whatever you want. You want to call it the Hog, you want to call it the Razorback, whatever you call it, we'll probably respond pretty well. But yeah, that we're calling it the Star, and so on the depth chart we'll decide. You know, we always got to turn that in. Like, hey, what are we going to call it? I don't know. We may end up calling it the Will just to confuse the opponents. But yeah, if you call it the Star, at least we'll all know we're on the same page.
And so the other one, is it a jack that you'll call?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that kind of that stand-up outside backer type, where we got Steven Souls and Waller and guys like that. That's kind of the Charlie Collins, that type of spot where they can put their hand in the ground and be a D end. But we'll call that the jack.
All right, last thing. What do you want to see at tomorrow's practice? I know advancement, but what all?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is now everybody knows where to go, and hopefully we're outside unless the weather is what it is. That's why we have a beautiful indoor. As long as the hail and snow stay away, we're going to go outside come hell or high water. But I just think now, okay, taking that great energy, that great passion, and now let's continue to get better. So now tomorrow we're going to be going into the next install. Can you remember what happened in install 1? And now versus different looks from the defense and offense and even special teams, can they now continue to do it at a high level with a different look, still remember what occurred before and take those right steps? So now the play speed needs to be better. The communication needs to be better because now there's no, wait, where are we going now? What are we doing? And so now it needs to be a smoother transition, and within those smoother transitions, the communication better uptick, right? The details, right? Because day one, sometimes guys are just flying off the ball to fly off the ball with excitement to go play ball and put the helmets on, right? Because for a lot of them, it had been since end of November. And so this is the first opportunity to go show. So now, okay, that's great, and I appreciate that energy and enthusiasm. Now can we go back and take the proper steps? Can we make sure we're making the proper call? Can we make sure the details continue as we look for that day-to-day improvement?